You're listening to a Comics XF podcast.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is your weekly X-Men podcast where we rank every story from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
And I am the werewolf that lives inside Zach, the bad boy of X-Men podcasting.
Hey, Frail.
I've taken over his skin. Frail? What do you mean frail? I'm not frail. I'm strong.
Zach, you've been posting some really good gym selfies lately, and
yeah.
You know,
It's because the werewolf makes me strong.
I'm
That's
telling
what
you,
happens.
it's great.
You put a werewolf in you, and then you go to the gym every other day for 6 months, and then you get slightly stronger.
It's great, man. It's great. I'm really happy for you and the werewolf. You know, it's like werewolf Zach. You know, whatever your current thing is.
as we've said, we can just refer to me as Zach. It's easier that way. But it's very easy. All I can do now is move heavier things, which is really, really neat.
Yeah, I mean, you want to be able to do that. Imagine that it's like your adversary's birthday, and you've just got to go and do what you got to do. It helps to be strong. So
it does helps to be strong, and that's I can appreciate that it helps to be strong, especially when you're generally the strongest person there, perhaps what some might call the best there is at what you do, and yet there is a dark mirror, Jungian shadow self, who is in fact stronger and some would argue better at what you do.
Really tough. If you haven't guessed already, folks, this week we are talking exclusively about Sabretooth stories. And Zach, how did this request come down the pike to us?
Came to us from Patreon supporter Sean Shambly. If you want to be like Sean, you can shamble on down to patreon.com/battle of the atom, reach deep down into your hearts and pocketbooks, and toss a couple of coins into our respective coffers. And then we will do a bespoke, unique episode all based on your suggestion. And if your suggestion is, hey, I like Victor Lavelle, can you talk about Sabretooth War? I'll say, I also like Victor Lavelle. Arguably my favorite author. It depends on the day and whose books I've read more recently, but Lavelle is from prose in my top 3 guys that I would drop everything and read their books for. So always excited when we get to talk about that guy, especially a story that like Sabretooth War that we're talking about this week that we I feel like there was a lot going on when this was coming out bi-weekly.
Yep.
And I'm going to say it. I feel like it was not just overshadowed, but kind of pushed aside from everything else that was going on. And I think that's to its detriment, because as I went back to this story, I enjoyed it a lot more than I remembered.
I'm going to save my takeaways for this as we talk about it, because I think it has its ups and its downs.
I think it has ups, downs, some sides to sides.
Yes.
It sure is a 10-part story, though.
Yes. But did we tell people where to go if they want to request a story?
Yeah,
I don't know if we did that.
They can be like Sean and shamble on down.
We did that part already. All right.
Yeah. In fact, Adam, listeners don't know because you're a good editor, but I stopped us in the middle of that so I could redo a joke that I didn't get across right the first time.
That's true. Okay. I'm
That's
sorry.
the magic of podcasting.
In
fact, all of this stuff might go away too. Who knows? I don't know what you're going to cut out of the edit. I live these things. I never re-listen.
I mean, I pretty much didn't edit the last episode at all. So,
which is wild. That's a wild one not to edit. I hope I didn't say some things out of pocket.
You didn't. Everybody was very well behaved. We
were on casual mode during that one, and I was okay with it.
But the people who are not on casual mode are Ben Percy and Lavelle, who for Sabretooth War, for folks who don't know what this is the last 10 issues of Wolverine Volume 7, from 41 to 50, and it promises the first cover promises the most violent most violent Wolverine story ever told. And there is a little warning at the bottom that says parental advisory, not for kids, exclamation point. So we're not doing Red Band comics yet. This is not a Max book, but they're making sure that this is going to be gory.
I'm going to say, and this is a constant across this arc series thing.
Yes.
The cover blurbs are easily the worst part of this entire thing, and I hate them. Happy birthday, Logan. Creed and Logan together again? Hold on. There's more. Creed's Ultimate Revenge. That was called My Sacrifice. That was their ultimate revenge on all of us.
Yep.
There's nothing on this cover.
No.
There's nothing on this cover. But there's more still. Hold on.
Yeah.
Brain Changer, Game Changer. Savage Showdown.
That's
Torn
good.
between two creeds. No, there's two more. We got to finish this.
Yeah.
The Adamantium Armor Unleashed. That's
boy.
the second worst part of this, by the way. Is the Adamantium Armor. And then
we'll get to it.
The Oversized Conclusion plus 50th issue celebratory bonus tales.
Okay.
Hey.
Yeah.
What's up with this story, Adam?
Well, before we get into it, we should also note that this is the conclusion of 3 different storylines. So this is also closing out X-Force, because X-Force had already, or I guess was ending kind of at the same time.
X-Force ends subsequently with this.
Yeah.
But
this story happens after.
Prior to the start of this story chronologically.
Right. This is also the ending of Wolverine Volume 7 and Victor Laval's Sabretooth story. That, the most recent mini before this was Sabretooth and the Exiles. So, you kind of had to know some stuff going into this, or else it'd be a little confusing.
It turns out this is the capstone of about 5 years of comics.
Yeah. Yeah.
And 5 years of comics that Ben Percy wanted to tell his own story within Krakoa. And I think largely does that successfully.
Mm-hmm.
But because it can be so separate from everything else, there can be a bit of a weird disconnect between the tone of Ben's books, what he's doing, and some of the other stuff that's going on.
So we can get into it. This story is happening at the same time that the Fall of X event is going on. So, but none of that, aside from I guess there is some core stuff about the Orcus Stark Sentinels that are guarding Krakoa that kind of are important to the story. But other than that, it's pretty disconnected from the rest of what's going on with the rest of the X-Men. I want to say right off the bat that I think that the story makes a very big mistake early on in advertising itself as the most violent Wolverine story ever told, because then the content of the book has to back that up. And I do think it's done poorly.
Interesting. I'd love to hear more.
So the basic premise of this is that Sabretooth, having escaped the pit, has now been hopping through alternate realities and collecting not only a team of the most vicious saber teeth from other universes, but has enslaved headless saber teeth to be his minions, so that he essentially has an army of saber teeth. And he is going to go to the hideout of Wolverine and X-Force, which is in Antarctica,
somewhere cold. It's in cold,
and he's going to kill everybody. It's Sabretooth's revenge. Hot on his tail are the Exiles. Well, they don't really want to get involved, but they know they have to be. And eventually this is going to end up in some death and some destruction, and it's pretty gruesome.
It is pretty gruesome. I'll say, I think Corey Smith and Jeff Shaw are great artists for this.
Yeah, they're trading off every other issue.
like Smith had been doing a lot of stuff with Percy on his Ghost Rider run, which I really enjoyed that run.
Mhm.
That's the run where Ghost Rider has a moon baby with a witch girl.
So cool.
I love that run so much. Here's the thing about Ben Percy, and we've talked about this on the show. There's some things in this comic that someone's going to say that's stupid, and Ben Percy's going to say, "I know. I also know. I'm aware. It's also kind of friggin' rad, right?" And we'll be like, "Yeah, Ben, it's pretty good and honestly incredibly funny when the first issue ends with Daken being completely and totally eviscerated and having his body parts spell out happy birthday in the snow." That's a funny joke that Sabretooth did.
Is it funny?
Yes,
Is
Adam. It's because it is so over the top. Like, and here's the thing. I think you and me have had this conversation about horror movies before.
Yes. I love horror.
I'm not a slasher guy.
Yeah.
Like, I generally do not like over the top gore stuff.
Yeah.
That specific joke, I remember the first time I read it, I cracked up because it is an exclamation point. It is saying, this is what we're doing here. And I think that is a very interesting way to approach this. I will also say that tonally, it's a bit of a weird shift from the stories that Percy was telling in Wolverine
Yes.
for the 40 issues before this, and that Lavelle was telling in his Sabretooth stuff. And it's not that elements of what Percy and Lavelle were doing aren't in this, but it does almost feel like they said, and we do have to crank this up and make it an over-the-top, gory action romp.
Yeah.
On top of everything.
That's why I think that it doesn't work. It's out of sync with what both of them were doing going into this. And so right in the first issue, Sabretooth.
Hold on. I do think the very dark Sabretooth humor of the happy birthday is in line with what Lavelle was doing.
Let me tell you where let me tell you the exact moment that I think they were like, yeah, this has got to be this like gross out thing. Sabretooth picks up a child and squeezes his head like a grape until his eyes pop out and his head explodes, essentially. And it's a child. And I think we're going to get back to this a couple times. You're not supposed to like Sabretooth.
You very much are. It's so important to note that you're not supposed to like this.
You're not supposed to like Sabretooth.
He is the bad guy.
But you are supposed to like your favorite villains. And Sabretooth sucks. Like, I think this is going to come up a couple times in the course of this episode, but Sabretooth as a character is not a good character.
See, okay, I find this very interesting because I am a bit fascinated by Sabretooth as a character because, going into this, like, Sabretooth is still written in the same way that Lavelle was writing him.
Yes.
He is
remorseless,
irredeemable, and not stupid.
No.
That's like, I think that's the most important thing that Lavelle really pushes with this run is that he is not a stupid character.
No.
He is very intentional. He is deeply aware of what he is doing the entire time. And I think that makes him an interesting antagonist for this, especially because he is a character that pushes even Wolverine to the point of like, is this violent enough? Like, or what does it mean for violence? Like, this is too much. Like, where does Wolverine draw that line? To do that, you have to have him be able to look at something and say, I can't go that far. So I get it from a structure standpoint. I would agree that historically, Sabretooth may not have been used incredibly thoughtfully over the years and just been big, dumb, mean, evil guy.
No, but this is where the story doesn't work for me in a lot of ways, is because what Victor was doing with the character was so smart leading up to this. Victor basically used Sabretooth to end his sentence in the pit to tell a really interesting and fascinating critique of the American carceral system, which there is maybe one really good scene in this entire 10 issue run where Doug, even though Doug is not in this story, a version of Doug is in this story with something called the Death Seed. And he thinks that even like with this tool that he is going to be able to like change Sabretooth, and
Make him feel
Sabretooth
empathy.
make him feel empathy, make him feel remorse. And Sabretooth is unshaken. And that is like what I wanted for the story. Unfortunately, the story is mostly because we have this Exiles-esque team of extra Sabretooth that are not interesting. The extra Sabretooth are like Captain America Sabretooth. There's a Lady Sabretooth. What's the other one? The other main one? I don't remember.
There's Pretty Boy, and then there is a like a stealth Sabretooth.
Yes.
I don't know. In that one, listen, I love Victor Lavelle. He wrote that in Sabretooth and the Exiles. Like, he was heading for that. I get it in concept. That doesn't. They, as antagonists, do not work. And they exist to die pretty quickly throughout this story. Like, here's the thing. I feel like you're right. They had to pivot and say this needs to be a big action story, and somehow becomes dumber than either Lavelle's Sabretooth stuff or Percy's Wolverine stuff up to this point.
Yeah. I mean, I'm tuning in expecting more of the intelligence that Lavelle is bringing from his Sabretooth work. And, you know, I was raving about Percy's Wolverine throughout the Beast stuff that he was doing in the book. And so when you get this both together and it's this hyper violent action story where Wolverine loses his powers and then uses a forge adamantium suit to come back and fight Sabretooth and Graydon Creed, who can control Sentinels. And it's
we
just
gotta
like,
talk about the Graydon Creed thing in a bit. We gotta talk about
it's not exactly what I want out of the story. And, you know, if I take it on its own terms, I don't think it's a bad comic book, but I do think it's action movie dumb in ways that I think both of them are much more capable of.
So I want to, and this is something that I always try and be careful of, like, especially when I was writing reviews and editing reviews. I don't want to review the comic that we didn't get.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm coming from. And I think I agree with all of your points. I kind of wish this was greater than the sum of its parts. But it's less than the sum of its parts. It's less smart than Wolverine, less smart than X-Force, less smart than Sabretooth by far. I think the fact that it has to be 10 issues, and it feels like it had to be 10 issues.
That's also to its detriment, I think. I think it could have easily been like 5 or 6.
Because you get a couple of issues that are like Wolverine's doing flashback things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, this is filler.
Right.
There is a subplot with Laura that isn't bad at all, but is superfluous to the overall story that they're trying to tell.
Yes.
I don't think the Exiles get enough of a focus. Like, I almost wish that this would have been a little bit tighter. Like, maybe 6 issues and you cut out a lot of the lead up to it. It is Sabretooth attacks Wolverine, you know, Wolverine tries to beat him back, and then the Exiles try and stop him. They have that great scene with Doug where he answers kind of the question that Lavelle lays out in the front of his Sabretooth story is like, what do you do with the character what do you do with someone who you can't save?
Yeah.
Like, say there was someone out there that was just too evil. What does a society do with that person?
Mm-hmm.
That's a fascinating question. And it's one that I think that writers have tried to answer with Sabretooth in the past, but hasn't always worked. I think, like, there's other things that really pop up in this, like Graydon Creed from Sabretooth and the Exiles comes back as Bad Seed, and he's nothing.
He's like Terminator, and he now has like the ability to control robots, so he can control a Stark Sentinel, and it kind of solves the Stark Sentinel problem around Krakoa.
Then he dies really quickly. If they would have set that if they would have set that up in the second issue
Yeah.
of this 10-issue series, that's one thing. But they try and like shove it in at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's other good stuff. There's Necra punching Sabretooth in the face while yelling hate.
Mm-hmm.
Saying, I've got something for you, Creed. Hate! That's great. That's super.
Love Laura's number one dad coffee mug present. You know, that's really funny.
I love that. I think there's some good bits in this. And I do think the very end of this comic, where essentially Wolverine says his thesis on Krakoa, I think there is a real emotional resonance to that.
Mm-hmm.
That works because he lays out what the text of every one of these books was, which was, man, this place was pretty screwed up, but we also kind of made it our home. So like, what do you do with it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what do you do with the fact that this was a bad place where bad people did bad things, but also this was a place where there was good. And, you know, I have to live with that, like that something can be both. And maybe Wolverine am both.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's what I am. I am good and bad in equal measure. And I can just live with that.
Well, given that his ultimate solution is to chop Sabretooth into a bajillion pieces and just turn him into confetti at the end of this story. I mean, that's proof in the pudding.
It's a very Wolverine solution to it, unfortunately. And this is one thing that does like bum me out a bit. It's like, that's the ending that you kind of feel like you have to have.
Right.
But it's a dumb resolution to it because this can't be the last Wolverine Sabretooth fight.
No,
it
of course
can never
not.
be the last Wolverine Sabretooth
Right.
fight. And my understanding in a book that I am not reading is that Sabretooth is already maybe back in Wolverine, like less than a year later.
I haven't been keeping up, but it would make sense given the storyline that I have been glancing at.
I don't read. It's just not for me.
I haven't been keeping up with it, other than Wolverine's mom coming back, which really does crack me up.
Wait, I'm sorry. What did I miss?
Wait, you're not aware of Wolverine's mom coming back? Wolverine's mom is not dead, Zach. She is immortal and sent Wolverine a letter, and he recognized her by scent. The scent of her in the letter. Oh man, Zach.
What? Like, hold on. Like his Christian mom?
Like his mom, James Howlett's mom. It's not
the mom
dead.
from
Origin.
From Origin. Like his mom.
She's not dead. She wrote him a letter. He's alive. She's alive.
Why?
Oh, Zach, this was advertised and solicited as like one of the biggest, like, this is going to be the biggest surprises in Wolverine history. And that was the surprise.
Why?
Just I didn't write it. I don't know.
I'm going to go out of pocket here for a second. I'm going to go out of pocket.
I think this is great. I love this.
I don't think I would be better at editing X-Men than anyone who's actually doing that work. I want to be incredibly clear. I don't think I'd be better at writing it because it's not my job.
Yeah.
I do think that it would be valuable, and I don't need to be this person, but that there's someone at Marvel that has to listen to every pitch and be like, that's not gonna fly. No one's gonna like that. Don't bring back Romulus. We don't need to bring back Romulus. We don't need to bring back Wolverine's mom. Who cares? Bring back Wolverine's dad if you're gonna bring back anyone.
Wolverine's mom is very
funny.
On.
They already brought back Dog Logan, who's a different guy who's not Sabretooth, but kind of already is and is tied to Why does Wolverine's mom need to be immortal?
All right, we gotta.
That's not in this comic. Wolverine's mom does not. Wolverine's mom does not appear in this comic, right?
No.
This comic's better than I remember, and if you take it for what it is, can be a real hoot, but also isn't the comic that I want, and that is really something I struggle with, especially because there are moments in this comic where it shows the signs of being the comic that I want it to be. But it also does have like a lot a lot of the stuff that I dislike about it is stuff that was set up in Sabretooth and the Exiles and just comes to fruition here. Like, it's possible that everyone wasn't going to stick the landing, but it just doesn't. This isn't bad. It's also not great. Though, here's what I'll say. Probably the best Wolverine Sabretooth like fight, right?
I guess.
Like, think about all the great Wolverine Sabretooth fights.
Yeah. There are not that many good ones.
Well, that's not the point.
Yeah.
Think about them all. It's probably this one, right?
It's not bad. It's not bad. I do.
Why do we keep giving Wolverine a sword, though? I don't get the
I don't know.
blade.
I don't. Well, because he's got to use the Muramasa blade to kill him, right? Doesn't he?
Yes, but
yeah. Anyway,
Wolverine already has 6 swords with him at all times.
Yeah.
He doesn't need a 7th.
This does read better than it did even coming out bi-weekly if you just sit down and you read it the whole way through, because it goes faster. There's less lulls when you read it that way. But ultimately, I'm not as hyped on this as you are. I'm looking down the list to Wolverine Noir at 427, which I think is better than this.
Hold on, let me look, because
and
we should remind people, because we haven't done that yet.
Oh, the big old list, Zach. We got to rank it on the big old list. I'm getting ahead of ourselves. What's the big old list, Zach?
That's the thing. The gimmick of this podcast is that we're ranking it's a gimmick. We're ranking every X-Men story from best to worst of all time. We've ranked 1,053 stories so far, the best being House of X Powers of 10. The 250th being Dazzler versus Juggernaut from Uncanny X-Men 217 and 218. City of the Dead from X-Men 2099 is at 500. The New Mutants Going Back to Asgard is at 750. Venom Tooth and Claw is at 1,000. And the worst X-Men comic of all time is 2099 World of Tomorrow. I do think you're right that it's in the top 500.
I do think this is better than at 456, Wolverine Volume 3, 62 to 65, Get Mystique, which is that Jason Aaron story. That
I do think this is better than Get Mystique.
So I think we're in between 427 and 456.
Like, here's where I struggle. The tonal difference throws me off, but I'm trying to remove myself from that because I'm trying to take this as just like these 10 issues, even though that's very difficult to do. And like, I'm currently reading Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy.
Oh.
Which is another like book that is very, very violent about a very bad person. It's a Cormac McCarthy book. You can kind of get the gist, but like it uses a lot of violence to say something.
Yes.
And I think this is also trying to say something, but then also some of the times it is, look how cool it is that we can draw Sabretooth ripping a dude in half.
Yes.
And I don't know what to do with that.
Here's where I think this should land.
This is a weird one to figure out.
At 435 is the Kid Omega arc of Ben Percy's X-Force. I think this is better than that.
Do you?
I think this should be slotted in between these two particular stories. At 430, we have Ultimate Spider-Man Annual number 1. I think this is better than that, but I do think it's worse than X-Men Unlimited Infinity Comic 35 to 40 Eenie Come Home, a Maggot story, which I do think has more...
I'm aware. You were telling our audience, not me. Yeah. You knew I knew.
This is better. That is a better story than this. It has more emotional impact.
I agree. I would almost put it just slightly below that.
Okay.
I would slot it between US Avengers 10 to 12 and Uncanny X-Men number 9 Vindicator.
Oh, okay, that's great. All right, so this is going to be our new 433, the Sabretooth War. Definitely worth checking out. I know I've been hard on it, but...
Okay, but like him cutting Daken into little pieces and writing Happy Birthday is funny.
It's good. I don't know if it's funny, but it's a good character beat for everybody.
If there were people, I'm sure there were people who were upset about it, giving some optics-based things. But I mean, Daken was coming right back. Like he was going to be gone for 9 issues that he already wasn't going to be in. Yeah, so it's fine.
Now he's the Helverine. So
I have not been keeping up with Helverine. Okay. Is Helverine still worth reading? Because I was having a heck of a time with that miniseries. I was like, this one's fun.
I haven't been keeping up with it, so I'm not sure. But we're
Someone
gonna
tell us if we should be keeping up with the Wolverine.
we are gonna go back in time to the year of 1993 to a Larry Hama Mark Teixeira joint. This is Sabretooth Volume 1, numbers 1 to 4. I believe this story is called Death Hunt.
It is. If you were to read the cover text on this one, like we did on the other one, it would say Sabretooth Death Hunt, ambushed by his past, on a quest for his life.
Whoa.
On a mission of death, a past life is found. Guess who's coming to dinner? Wolverine! And then also on the last one, Sins of the Father, the final chapter.
Yeah.
Which, I'm going to be honest, also sounds like the chapter titles to Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian, which are just weird strings of like sentence fragments. But like a lot of them. He's doing that thing where he just puts like a paragraph of like two words about each other paragraph that's in the chapter. It's a wild book.
Yeah.
Anyway, are you also mad that Marvel Unlimited does not show you the inside of the die cut cover?
Yeah, it just shows you a scan of the cover. Now, for folks who have not seen this book, the cover treatment is very similar to Deadpool Circle Chase. It has sort of a red background in the first issue and like a column of text on the left, but the first issue in particular has a die cut of the O's to show you a Mark Teixeira painting of Sabretooth, but then we don't get to actually see that artwork, which is disappointing.
Hey, by the way, text looks so good in this. Like, I know this is post Ghost Rider.
It's killing
Teixeira. It's exciting, it's dark, it's moody, it's fun. His drawing of Birdie with the big gun that then became. Here's the thing. This is the story with Birdie in it, right?
Yes, Birdie, who we got introduced to in Jim Lee X-Men during the Omega Red arc, is this sort of psychic character who can basically get Sabretooth high by like feeding him psychic energy.
Like calming him down.
It calms him down, but it also kind of like, I don't know. It's a weird effect that it has on him, and he's like addicted to it, but he's also abusive to Birdie. So it's a very strange dynamic.
It's a strange dynamic. It feels like he's addicted to it in the same way I'm addicted to my antidepressants. It feels like Sabretooth, this comic implies that a properly medicated Sabretooth,
yes,
maybe that's what Victor Lavelle was missing in his grand theory of can Sabretooth be rehabilitated.
SSRIs.
Maybe they were like, I bet Sabretooth would be a fantastic SSRI girly.
Oh boy.
I bet he would be fantastic. But Birdie is here. Yep. Birdie with her stupid gun. It's so incredible. And it's so incredible because you know that the creative team behind Marvel vs. Capcom and those fighting games did not read any words of this comic and just saw that picture of Birdie with the gun and said, well, we have to get her in the game somehow.
Yeah.
She must be a support action for Sabretooth.
Yeah, so this is after Teixeira did his Wolverine run with Hama, so they've worked together before, which is great. And I mean, Teixeira is just on this tear during this point where his work is, if folks have never seen it, it just has this very almost charcoal quality to like the lines, and everybody is just these enormous hulking brutes. All the women are these absolute beautiful model-esque ladies, but it's got this very sketchy kind of look to it that feels very energetic and almost like he's slashing at the page. So, you know, if you've never seen his Ghost Rider, I mean, I have to imagine you have if you're familiar with the character, because it's one of the most iconic versions of the character. And
I don't feel like you could, if you're aware of Ghost Rider comics, though I guess I'm assuming that you are a child of a certain age, and that is around my age or older. In which case, it would be impossible not to have seen a Mark Teixeira Ghost Rider. But I don't think my children would know what a Mark Teixeira Ghost Rider is, and I'm not sure where that break point is.
Mm.
You know, when did the kids stop knowing about Mark Teixeira?
Yeah.
Sabretooth does ride a motorcycle in this comic, so it's very much a Mark Teixeira and Larry Hama comic in that vein.
This is like Hama's also on a tear here. You know, they're doing action movie stuff here. Sabretooth is basically has a bomb strapped to his heart by who will be revealed, spoiler alert, to be Graydon Creed, and sent off.
Don't care about Graydon Creed. We'll never care about Graydon Creed.
Here this is Graydon Creed's first appearance.
One of my favorite authors in the world. A man whose books I have teared up reading, whose prose is so dear to me, could not make me care about Graydon Creed.
No.
So if Victor Lavelle can't do it, if Larry Hama can't do it, don't try and bring back Graydon Creed. You ain't gonna get me. You ain't gonna get me.
It's totally fine. We don't need to care about Graydon Creed, but because here
he has nothing in this comic.
He's Tribune. He's basically a guy in armor. This is before X-Men Unlimited 3 and 4. So, you know, we haven't gotten into all the stuff yet, but we will get the reveal in this book that Graydon Creed is Sabretooth's son. And he is basically sent to kill Mystique because Graydon has realized who his parents are and wants them both dead.
It's interesting that Graydon Creed hates his parents so much. Like, I get that, but it doesn't make him interesting. What is interesting is Sabretooth and Mystique's relationship, specifically in the third issue where Sabretooth and Mystique and Wolverine have dinner in Paris on the Eiffel Tower.
One of the funniest comics I have read in a long time is Sabretooth number 3, where Wolverine at one point during this dinner rips the tablecloth and all of the dishes off of it and then has to quietly sit back down at the table because he's not allowed to be frustrated. And then not only maybe like 2 or 3 pages later, then rips his clothes off, revealing his Wolverine costume underneath because he's really frustrated. It's so
what he says when
funny.
He's ripping off his clothes, which by the way, he looks insane when he's doing this.
It's so funny.
Teixeira is just like, forget anatomy, we're going 100% on vibes.
Yeah.
He says, so if everyone else is going to trash the dress code and get funky, then let's all jump in the pool. No one but Larry Hama could write that.
It's very much a Michael Keaton Batman, like, you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts kind of moment. And like, it's very funny.
No one writes anything the way that Larry Hama writes Wolverine.
That's true.
Because his Wolverine is an insane character. Because he's 100% Wolverine.
Mm.
But I feel like if anyone else gave Wolverine as many quips as Larry Hama does, they would be crucified on one of those big X's on a St. Andrew's cross.
Yes,
the way that we have to.
Have you heard that those are coming back?
I've seen a picture.
You saw a picture. Okay.
A picture was sent to me and I was like, whatever. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't
just asking.
Which revelation are we talking about? I mean, it's fine.
It's Doug.
Well, you know what? That's what internet addiction will get you. That's what makes you the era of apocalypse, is that you can have and then successfully get over your internet addiction.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, after Wolverine says, then let's all jump in the pool, Birdie just yells, "Aren't you forgetting the grenade?" and throws a grenade at him.
Yes.
Which he then catches
on his claw
to stop the pin from going. It's this comic is so
fun.
Yeah, it's like, here's the thing. If Sabretooth War was not smart enough derogatory, this is not smart enough complimentary. You know?
Yeah.
It's a gorgeous comic. I would like to point out Teixeira's like painted covers are actual, like, oh, this should be a trading card. Like, they are so friggin' good. His sequentials are fantastic in it. I think the plot is irrelevant, but Hama gives Sabretooth enough. Like this is where the idea of Sabretooth's actually pretty smart.
Yes.
Like that's where you pick this up,
Mhm.
because he seems like he's a pretty smart guy. He's charming's the wrong word, but
Well,
he is.
he's not charming, but he's also like physically abusive to Birdie in ways that get brought back up in Sabretooth War. I did appreciate that callback in Sabretooth War by Doug. So the relationship between those two characters is rough because Birdie is trying to escape Sabretooth, but also seems to kind of have like a little bit of Stockholm syndrome with him, like enjoys hanging out, and like it's weird. It's very much an abusive relationship.
It is, but like, cards on the table. Larry Hama's just kind of riding a pretty unfortunately realistic relationship there. Like,
it's dark.
Sabretooth
it's dark, and it's very much in line with the sort of 90s action movie that he's trying to espouse. Like
it is, but it's like that relationship part of it feels smarter because it's not like an arcade mislock situation.
No,
he's underlying that. Not that this is a silly situation in that, they're doing silly abuse. Like, this is a truly tragic situation. And I think that's the underpinning of this whole thing, because Sabretooth can be like an enjoyable protagonist of this comic.
Mm-hmm.
But he keeps that layer of like, Larry Hama is giving him something that like you look at it like, this is why you can't root for him still. Like, no matter everything he's doing.
Right. He's still a villain. He's still a bad guy.
He's still the villain of this.
Yeah.
I think that is a very intelligent story beat for this.
I said earlier that I don't usually like Sabretooth. I will say that this is probably the closest that I've come based on the creative team of enjoying this character. Just based on what's happening here and, the way that the story is told, I can actually like enjoy spending some time with this version of the character in ways that in a lot of other incarnations I can't.
If I was 7 years old in 1993 and I had Sabretooth, this miniseries, and I had video games.
Yeah.
I can see Sabretooth being my favorite character. Like I can get that, like how there was a generation of dudes who was like, oh, he's the best.
And hats off to Teixeira, because Sabretooth is still wearing the absolutely terrible Jim Lee design costume with the mane and the bodysuit.
Oh, I like the brown mane.
Stripe. I mean, the mane is great, but the rest of the bodysuit, there's nothing to it. And Teixeira still makes it looks great. It looks good.
I was about to say something, but then I looked at the cover of number 4, because I was going to talk about Tyler Mane, the wrestler that played him in the X-Men movie.
Yeah.
And then I looked at the cover of number 4, and that's just what Tyler Mane looks like in that movie.
Yeah, pretty much. If you put a head sock on him, that's pretty much
they
what
got
it
it right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, this is a pretty this is like secretly like it's a pretty good comic.
It's fun, and especially for you and I, who both recently within the last year revisited the Teixeira era of Ghost Rider. I read some of the Wolverine arc that he did. I've just really enjoyed this artist at this time period. I think it's a lot of fun. So I mentioned Deadpool Circle Chase, and I'm kind of curious where
is Circle Chase. This is better than Circle Chase.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of curious where it is on the list.
It's at 404. This is better than 404.
I agree. I do think it's better than that. I think it's better than Deadpool versus Old Man Logan at 383.
I do too, and that's a comic we like a good amount.
Yeah.
I'm scrolling up farther than I want to on this. Like, I feel like, okay, I'm gonna put something out here that I think is actually a good line in the sand.
Yeah.
304 is the Bishop miniseries from the 90s.
Yeah.
This is better than that, right?
This is better than that.
Better
And
than
I
Bishop?
like that.
It's
I
kind of
like
better.
that Bishop series a lot, and I do think this is better.
It's kind of. Is it better than the Rogue miniseries? That's at 290.
I think that the story, well, is the story better in Rogue?
Not really.
The writing might be a little bit better, but I think the art is better in this. But I wouldn't go too much higher. We're getting into
This isn't better. Okay.
Yeah.
This is not better than 281 Power Pack 19. Guess who's coming to dinner? That's where they have dinner.
Yes.
They have Thanksgiving dinner.
But I do think it's better than Generation X -1, which, I like that book, but I just think this is coming at you full force. Like, but earlier I was, just hanging out. I had the TV on and like Schwarzenegger and Total Recall was on. And I was just like, yeah, that's the kind of energy that like Teixeira and Hama are bringing to this book. It's not like sci-fi like that, but he wants that action movie vibe and it works.
You say it's not sci-fi. He is wearing like an anime mecha armor. Graydon Creed is.
Yeah,
he looks
Creed.
like he looks like he is not a Gundam. What's the other one?
Macross? Robotech?
I don't know what a cross is, but it might be that.
Oh. Anyway.
How do you spell that? Because I now need to know.
Macross. Macross.
I think that is what I'm thinking of.
Is it? Okay.
No, it's like a green. There's like a green. No, it's not Macross. I don't know. I wanted to say Appleseed Ex Machina, but that's not right. It's like there's like it's anime with green robot guy.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
But this is the last time that maybe you're thinking of the big robot Appleseed guy? Maybe?
Big robot Appleseed. I don't know.
There's a robot and a lady in Appleseed. I never actually watched that. I'm not an anime or a manga expert as I'm demonstrating right now.
It's not Appleseed.
No.
I don't know. It's like an anime robot that looks like a Warhammer.
Sure. But we never see Graydon in this outfit again. I mean, this is it.
We don't. Folks, because I know that there's like 5 of you out there who are screaming at me, just go to the comments of this episode on when Adam posted or CXF posted and just tell us.
Yeah.
Just tell us which one this is.
Yeah.
Big green chunky looking robot guy.
Sure.
The guy that looks like Graydon Creed looks like in this comic.
Which you should read. Okay. We got one.
Read the comic first, then yell at me about not Guyver or whatever it is.
All right, we got one more to go, and this is a pivotal issue, but also kind of a strange one. This is from Wolverine Volume 2. It is Chris Claremont, illustrated by John Mishima, and inks by Bill Sienkiewicz, which are very important to this issue. And this is Wolverine number 10, the issue that involves establishing that Sabretooth always hunts Wolverine down on his birthday and threatens to kill him.
And at minimum, does some murder so that Wolverine feels bad.
Yes. To always let Wolverine know that he's the bigger, badder guy. This is where that starts. We'd had Sabretooth as a character previously, obviously, but this one is starting to really establish the personal connection and, real animosity that these two have.
So I think it's important to give some background on Wolverine and Sabretooth.
Yes.
Sabretooth was initially designed by Byrne, and like him in his and Claremont's conception of the character in Iron Fist first, but like this was going to be Wolverine's dad.
Right.
That was the idea was this is Wolverine's dad.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't get refuted until we figure out who's Wolverine's dad's also not immortal, right? Like, just to bring it back.
Not that I'm aware of.
Not yet.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Well, with his mom being immortal, just all bets are off. But beyond, like, they had a couple of run-ins in Mutant Massacre.
Mm-hmm.
But like I feel like Wolverine and Sabretooth don't become each other's villain until this point.
Yes.
Like this is the issue that does that.
Yes.
It establishes Sabretooth as a brutal, more evil person than you had ever thought, because you thought that him and Riptide were like the same level of dude before this.
Yeah, he becomes, I mean, obviously the Mutant Massacre establishes, and, you know, his fight with Psylocke establish how bad Sabretooth is, but this takes it up a notch in a way that is a lot darker. It is not just off-screen death of characters we're not aware of. This is the one that establishes that not only did Sabretooth kill um, Wolverine's partner Silver Fox, but also sexually assaulted her beforehand. And, you know, we're getting it all here. You know, Sabretooth is raping, he's murdering, he's racist, he's beating the crap out of Wolverine throughout the flashbacks in this issue, and then still punctuates his Wolverine's present in Madripoor by killing a bunch of guys that tried to kill Wolverine and says, I'm the only one that gets to kill you. It's very sadistic and dark. And man, I don't know. It's an odd issue, because you expect, if you've not gone back to this one in a while, you expect it to just be the flashback, and the majority of the issue is not the flashback. It is more Wolverine and Jessica Drew and Lindsay McCabe and navigating Madripoor, you know, nightlife, and it still hits, but it's an oddly structured issue. It's also Claremont's last on this solo book.
It is oddly structured. I will agree with that. I think, you know, there's people who would know this as, oh, that's where Silver Fox gets fridged.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things on that, you know, especially rereading this story just with context, hits me, that I think it's important. Like if you just know the story by reputation, it's worth looking at it, because like Silver Fox has never been mentioned before this moment.
Right.
Is not a character before she is dead.
No.
I think that makes it I think that Claremont is not like luxuriating in the torment and the torture of Silver Fox or anything like that. That would be a very non-Claremont thing to do, honestly. That wouldn't fit with his MO, but he doesn't do that. She's a name, that she's someone that Wolverine loves, that Sabretooth kills to hurt Wolverine specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, especially, I mean, Gail Simone's writing X-Men right now. Like, I'm sure there are people who are thinking of fridging and all that stuff. And I think what's important on that, and I feel like I try and bring this up a lot when we're talking about any of these sensitive things, like the big issue with that and the big like thesis of that essay was not the one instance of Kyle Rayner's girlfriend being stuffed in the fridge. It was that this stuff keeps happening to female characters at the expense of male protagonists. And that's the trend, the repetition of it is really where the issue is. And I think this issue walks a very fine line, and it's not my place to tell people who don't enjoy it because of that they're wrong. But I think I think that this is trying to be a thoughtful version of that story. You know, like it is still, man is upset because woman died and he loved her.
I think,
but I feel like Claremont tries to add some more pathos to it, you know?
Yeah, I don't disagree. It's tough because Silver Fox in the years since has become a much more developed character with a tremendous amount of backstory that then
did work for Nazis for a little bit. She's a weird character.
It's a very interesting character that has ties through like out the Logan Sabretooth stuff. So when you actually go back, it's more loaded than it's not that it's not loaded when it happens because of how savage it is. But it becomes even more complicated once you realize that this character has become a kind of a core part.
They add to it later to make it, when you're thinking continuity.
Yes.
it feels like it's a bigger anchoring point.
Yes.
But it could be like the woman doesn't matter in this story.
Which you
And
could
that's
argue is, you know, just as ugly, and, you know, that it's just this like dismissive thing.
and
Because
I would agree with that. Like on a moral level, I'm looking just at it like a pure economics of 20-page storytelling.
well, and that's another reason why this issue is weird, is because it doesn't let you have any context for like what their relationship was or why it would be important if she died. It's just Sabretooth walking in with her body and, you know, kind of dumping it on the floor. And it's like, oh boy, you know, when he says like, this is what happens when uses a racial epithet, you know, they say no. I mean, it's about as brutal as Claremont gets in his storytelling.
Which is, well, and the racism that's in here,
yeah,
it's
heavy.
It's heavy, and it's also contextually, or even not even contextually, just in the time that it was written, part of the conception, like Wolverine's backstory wasn't known. Claremont and several other people were working under, like, they had a loose idea of like, oh, Sabretooth's Wolverine's dad, this, like these bullet points that they'd eventually get to. And one of those things was that Wolverine was half native. Like that was something that they had sketched out as like a concept for the character. So it's supposed to even further emphasize the difference between these two.
Yeah.
Like Sabretooth is being very intentional in his hate. Like, I'm not saying Sabretooth is not racist. I want to be so clear. I truly do believe Sabretooth was racist there intentionally to hurt Wolverine more than just to be bigoted. Like, it was laser focused bigotry. Which speaks to his character.
Yes. So, you know, your read of this book is going to be colored by, you know, the intentionality that you think is going on in terms of the storytelling. I think the issue is a bit of a mess because it does devote so much of its time to the Madripoor stuff when really the Sabretooth stuff is much more interesting. That said, one of the things that this issue has going for it is that John Buscema is being inked by Bill Sienkiewicz, a pairing that will continue into the next arc of this book. They are an outstanding pairing. Buscema, you know, kind of has more of a house style when inked by other people.
I mean, he was the house style for a while.
Yeah, so to see him take, and we've seen this when Bill Sienkiewicz takes on other artists,
literally anyone,
you know, but the two of them pair up really, really well. We've never talked about it for the show, but I proceeded to read the next arc, which is Peter David
the
story, the Gehenna Stone. It's so fun. It's like a lot of visual, like really cool stuff. And, you know, Sienkiewicz contributes the cover, which is an outstanding piece of artwork on its own. This does look really great. But I'm a little bit torn about the actual execution of the story.
I'm not a huge Buscema guy. I never have been. This John or Sal, like either one, they just don't like. I see the technical chops and the storytelling chops, but I don't. They aren't artists that have ever excited me. I do think that Sienkiewicz elevates John's work here, in a really interesting way. But like, again, don't want to judge the comic that we don't have.
Yeah,
but I feel like if it was 2 pages in the present, leads to the flashback for 16 pages, 2 pages wrapping up the exact same 2 pages at the end of the comic that no one gets to kill you except for me, especially today. That's a stronger book.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like if you dedicate more time to the Silver Fox of it all, like, even just give her a line, give her anything that we feel a connection to this character, even though she's immediately going to be fringed and ripped out. Like, but Claremont would do that. He would do the things where like, here's random background character, here's a paragraph about their backstory. They're dead now.
Yeah.
We don't get that. And I feel like even that would elevate this to the right level. But I agree. This is a mixed comic that has a lot of really talented people getting like 75% of the way there.
Yeah. I do think this is better than at 392. We have the first 3 issues of Wolverine Volume 2, the Black Blade.
I'll agree, but Deadpool versus Old Man Logan is at 385, and I think Deadpool versus Old Man Logan's better.
I agree. I would probably also put this below Glob Loves Man Kills at
Yeah, you would.
At 388.
Yeah, you would, because Glob Loves Man Kills is good, actually.
I would also put it below Spider-Man 8 through 12 Perceptions.
I have no feelings on that one way or another.
Yeah.
This is not as good as Captain America's Secret Empire.
No. Is it better than Uncanny 160?
Yeah, it's better than Uncanny 160.
All right,
that's the
where it
first
should go.
Limbo stuff.
All right, so this is going to be our new 391 Wolverine Volume 2, number 10. And we did it. Talked about some Sabretooth stuff.
See, I think Sabretooth as a character is a good character. I think Sabretooth as a person is a bad person. I want people to
He's supposed to be that way.
I know we know this, but I just want people to understand where I stand.
Yes.
In this scenario, I think he's a bad person, and I do not think that we should model our lives after him. But I'll tell you, I think there's one thing that was interesting, and I meant to talk about this earlier, but I was listening to Jay and Miles explain the X-Men recently, and Jay brought up something that he's said several times, is that superhero comics are interesting because they are one of the only pieces of media that explicitly labels their heroes and villains. And I was thinking about that all through, especially the thinking on Sabretooth War, and really just like looking back on Krakoa, because I think about that a lot. And I've started to think that one of the reasons why there was so much confusion from a lot of people on Krakoa, like, is this good, bad, what is this, is because they aren't used to superhero comics that don't explicitly label their heroes and villains.
Yeah.
And like Sabretooth War is very much it's a story where you are labeling the villain pretty clearly, but also the heroes that would normally be explicitly labeled as heroes have a bit more grayness to them.
Sure.
And I think that I'm starting to think that sometimes people don't like even a little bit of gray is throwing them off. And that's not me. That's not my vibes, man. I like weird, kind of twisted, kind of messed up, a little bit on the edge.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah. You want
like
Tony
what?
Soprano, you know,
it's just like, why are we so serious about this stuff? Why so serious?
Don't do that. We can't end on
why
that.
Why so serious, Adam?
So,
can you imagine if we were a Batman podcast and we had to do Joker discourse all the time?
No, we leave that to our friends at Bat Chat.
Can you imagine to be like,
that's not
yes,
us.
We know there's a lot of weirdos who listen to the Joker and like the Joker and have Joker tattoos and are on Love Island with their big old Joker tattoos, but he is our favorite clown. Like, I'm glad that Sabretooth is not at Joker levels, because then we'd have to do that all the time.
Yeah, thank God.
Now we just have to talk about how problematic Cyclops is all the time, and that's fine. We can get over that.
Cool with that.
Fun fact: we had friends over, and one of them was trying to explain who Cyclops was to me, and I was letting her. It's not important why. Like, I don't advertise some of these things. My daughter put a headband over her eyes, and she was trying to come up with the name Cyclops, and was like, I got like the laser heat vision thing. And I'm like, all these are wrong, and I know what you're doing, but you're so wrong, and I can't correct you because that would be rude.
The child or the other adult?
The child is 1 year old. She does not know what Cyclops is.
Oh, I see.
The adult. It was a full grown adult. It's fine. Full grown adults also allowed. In fact, probably preferred and better for them if they don't know what a Cyclops is.
That's not to gatekeep.
That's not to gatekeep.
Yeah. So I'm gonna just promote a couple other quick things.
Oh yeah,
here.
we should do our exit for the show. Sorry, I got distracted.
No, that's okay. I liked your tangent. I like that story. Lots of great Comics XF stuff lately, and we want to thank everybody for tuning in, because we've seen a lot of readers lately. If you missed it last week, we did 12 books that we thought should come out after the Hellfire Vigil. People really
Is
seem,
Wolverine's mom one of them?
no, but we did
wait,
have a
can I-
pitch for, without spoiling the entire article, Wolverine's original origins, which original origins. Anyway, check that one out. It's really fun. We also
If I
did a
was doing
jam.
pitch,
Zach,
just so you know, if I was
Zach,
oh, I'm sorry,
you don't
Keep
write
going,
for
keep
Comics
going.
XF anymore. Be quiet.
This is true. I'm just saying my pitch would be Wolverine's mom teams up with Galactus's hot mom.
There you
I don't
go.
have
I
anything
like
beyond
that.
that.
That's good.
Now that Wolverine's mom's back.
Yes.
Keep going.
What was I saying? We also did a jam piece about the Vigil. People really seem to respond to that article as well. So check that out. Lots of great stuff happening over at Comics XF. Follow us on social, Adam Rec on Blue Sky and Instagram. Zach, what are we doing next week as we get closer to episode 400?
Well, first off, we thank Sean Shambly. We have to thank Sean Shambly. We're not going to thank Sean Shambly next week, so I want to make sure it happens this week.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Sean. Patreon.com/Battle of the Atom. Adam already told you to give us money there, and I already told you to give us money there, so that's fine. Next week, we are talking about a creator who I've had some ups and downs with, and I think it'll be very interesting to jump in and get a real breadth of their time on the X-Books. It's going to be a Cy Spurrier episode. I remember when this got requested, because I'll forget to say this by next week, so I have to say it now. I remember me and Adam were having dinner, and I got to tell him in person what we were covering, and the look on his face was funny. I laughed really hard when I got to share this with him.
That is true.
It was beautiful. But until then, buddy, this has been Battle of the Atom. We hope you survived the experience.
Get it!